Yes, welcome again, Mr. Rishab. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yes, my name is Rishab Harikrishnan. By education, I'm primarily an engineer. I did my mechanical and industrial engineering. Post that, I started working for Amazon back in 2016, and I've been with Amazon for about 8 years before I moved to where I am currently, which is Oracle. In Amazon, I had two predominant roles. The first one was building highly autonomous fulfillment centers that essentially work as the supply chain nodes for the e-commerce business. So all the packages that you order and receive in your houses, those are stored and fulfilled through the fulfillment centers that we designed. And my focus was on the more autonomous versions of them to improve the business efficiency of Amazon's e-commerce business. Post that, I was with AWS, where we designed data centers instead of fulfillment centers. Data centers, as you may be familiar with, are the building blocks for the cloud compute business. And with the recent advent of AI, the number of data centers that we are building are growing even further exponentially. I was helping build mechanical and electrical equipment for our next generation data centers with AWS. In Oracle, I'm in a similar role where we are in the data center realm, but I'm focused on the physical networking aspect of things. So networking, network switches, dark fiber, and so on. Uh, yeah, that's about me. I'm based out of Seattle. Uh, Outside of work, I enjoy hiking, playing soccer, and the outdoors.
Yes, so Mr. Rishab Harikrishnan, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today, let's talk about the hidden infrastructure powering your life that explore the invisible system we rely on daily. So tell us what qualifies as a hidden infrastructure the most people never think about.
Yeah, day in, day out, we use computers, we use internet, we use our phone, but we don't really think about how we get to do all the things that we do. Uh, Post working with Amazon, I realized all the things that happen in the background for us to have the quality of lives that we do, and data centers are a big part of that. Data centers help essentially run and sustain the internet as we know it today. Uh, Anything that you do from browsing to Google searches to chat GPT, all of those run through the internet backbone itself. And any kind of phone calls that you do also connect through the internet nowadays. So without this infrastructure, we'll kind of be set back 20, 30 years. And yeah, we kind of take that for granted now, given how scaled up these hidden infrastructures have become. They've become really ubiquitous to us.
How does infrastructure design reflect a society's priorities and values?
How does infrastructure design? Hmm, interesting. Uh, Once upon a time, data centers used to be in the 70s just a huge room with a bunch of fans that cooled your equipment, a bunch of uh, electrical gear that powered the equipment, and we would run basic compute on it. With time, we are starting to build bigger and bigger data centers, now the size of 1 million square foot, consuming power of large cities like 50,000 homes, 100,000 homes, all for us to sustain what technology has moved us towards. We need 24/7 internet connectivity now to not just do our browsing, but also for mission critical stuff like hospital power, hospital controls, the packages that get delivered to you, and a bunch of other manufacturing processes and medicine, for example, being prepared. All of that needs to happen highly reliably. And over time, we started engineering infrastructure in such a way that we can repeat the process with a high level of reliability and mass produce stuff for a better quality of life. So with time, the infrastructure design has gotten so sophisticated that AWS, for example, we're able to promise 99.99999% availability for a customer because we've built in so much redundancy and resiliency into our designs. An example is we have three AD zones where we have three different data centers in a particular zone. And if one particular data center goes down, the other two are backup and they can continue to provide the data that you require. Similar to that itself, if there is an earthquake in a particular region, then we have another region that can have data backup. At a data center level as well, if you have one particular power source that dies off, we have two other alternate power sources that can pick up power, like generators or UPS, that can continue to power the system itself. So at every layer, we have so much redundancy with our current infrastructure that we're able to bank on it reliably and do mission critical services. Yeah, this trend is only going to continue moving forward.
Mr. Rishab, let's talk about the technology and connectivity. How many miles of fiber optic cable exists beneath our cities and who maintains it?
I'm trying to estimate things. I would say overall in the world, we'll have millions of miles of fiber, and fiber comes in all shape and form. In cities, we have there are fiber providers who typically build tunnels, put fiber optics in these tunnels, and rent them out to anyone who needs them. Either hyperscalers like AWS, Oracle, Microsoft, or telecom providers, broadband, internet providers, and so on. And each of these companies lease the fiber a certain amount of capacity typically and rely on them for maintenance and upkeep. And we continue to renew our leases. They have a lifetime of 15 to 20 years typically. These fiber optics cables exist everywhere in the city. Wherever you have internet and electricity under the ground, you typically have fiber optics too. So I don't have a good idea of how to estimate miles. But an interesting fact is you have a bunch of fiber optic cables even going under the sea. For example, we have a bunch of transatlantic lines going all the way from the east coast of the US to England to India to Africa, for example, and they can get multiple thousand of miles in length just for one connectivity between two major cities.
What happens behind the scene when I make simple phone call, Mr. Rishab?
Phone call very similar to data center or internet usage has a bunch of hops that it makes before it can connect us to uh, the other side of our call. Uh, let's pick up maybe an internet phone call as an example. When I dial a call, there are packets that are traveling from my device to the closest routing point, which is typically a router in my house. The router is connected to the backbone in the internet service provider's infrastructure itself. So the backbone essentially is made up of multiple routers again, so that it can route and find the final destination or the IP in the shortest number of hops. So there are a system of routers through which these packets jump and find the final IP and trigger a notification for the person who is receiving the call, and then they pick up. Uh, Millions of these packages travel on a regular basis for conversation, uh, and they happen in the period of nanoseconds. So it's really fast. They travel at the speed of light, and there are multiple hop points through multiple routers in the internet service provider's edge data center in one of the hyperscalers or a regular data center and back to the edge or POP. POP stands for points of presence data centers close to where my recipient is, and then to the recipient's device.
Mr. Rishab, how do undersea internet cables withstand ocean pressure and repairs?
I am also learning about all of this, but just like we deploy cable under the ground, we have some level of armor or an outer shell that protects the internals of the dark fiber from all kinds of physical elements, pressure, force, rain, uh, name it. Similar to that, we also deploy a shell that we put to the bottom of the ocean and route the fiber optics cable through that shell. That's how it withstands pressure. And we find routes where it's not too deep, where we have experience and we have tracked what the depth is to make sure it doesn't go beyond what the pressure capabilities of the pressure vessel itself is. That way, we have an understanding for what pressure it can handle and if the solution that we are deploying will break or not under it.
Mr. Rishab, utilities and essential services. What orchestration ensures clean water appears when I turn on the tap? What's the
Hmm,
logic?
interesting. Uh, for our data centers, they typically consume, depending on the type of design, they consume various amount of water, but our most intense data centers consume quite a bit of water. So for them, we need to make sure that we have continuous supply of water so that we can run them effectively and have high uptime. For those, we typically have contracts with providers, typically energy providers or water providers, to say, hey, we need this amount of capacity of water per month, per year. And they do some capacity planning to procure that water and supply it to us. And they charge us on a per gallon basis. How much ever gallons we use, they charge us based on that. In order to ensure that there is sufficient supply, they do geographical studies, they do water table studies to understand how much water actually exists in the local geographic region to give us an estimate of what is feasible or not. If we require more water than that, we'll need to figure out how we can reuse or recycle the existing water for us to reduce our overall consumption of water or make cooling changes such that the design inherently uses lesser water. But if there is abundant water available because of a lot of rainfall or a river flowing that way, then there isn't a shortage of water per se. The provider is easily able to filter it and funnel it down to the data center similar to a city itself.
And Mr. Rishab, how does electricity travel hundreds of miles without significant power loss?
So there's a lot of engineering that goes behind it. At the
Yes.
power generation point, uh, we step up whatever electricity we generate to a really high voltage. When the voltage is high, the losses because of transmission become low because it's inversely proportional. Because of that reason, for example, the voltages that we transfer it would be 10,000 volts or 1,000 volts, whereas in commercial day-to-day use, we use 130 volts, 200 volts, 220 volts. So stepping up of the voltage helps us reduce losses when we transport electricity across thousands of miles. And then close to a city, there's another substation that again steps down the voltage from 10,000 volts to say 800 or 400 volts that supplies power to each of the individual houses, or in this case, a data center. And then the data center again further steps down to what the servers use, which can be 130 volt or 200 volt, depending on the design itself.
Mr. Rishab, what are your short term and long term goals?
Uh, Short term, I just joined Oracle. Oracle has been an exciting place to be in, and there's a lot of challenging work ahead of us and a lot of backlog that we need to get ahead of. So I am focused on leading Oracle's physical networking organization to scale up against these challenges and to grow at a fashion that doesn't break our team and doesn't lead us to causing more reliability issues, causing more scalability related issues, and meeting the demand that we currently have, which is tremendous by itself. So I think the next 3 to 5 years will be oriented towards this from a career perspective. From a long term perspective, I want to figure out how I can impact this world at a much larger scale. From a data center side, I've been learning about all the different elements of the data center. And so I've been developing the knowledge to do something independently by myself with all of these skills. So I hopefully start up something or have my own endeavor with which I'm able to give back to the world. It's still very hazy, but hopefully with time I'll be able to progress and add more definition to that.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Rishab, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Uh, Interesting. I would say I am in early to mid career right now. Back in my engineering days, I was very confused on what to study. Uh, but what has helped me be in a field that makes sense is looking at what seems to be futuristic and ubiquitous and focusing my career path towards that. For example, moving from the fulfillment center business to the data center business. So, for people who are choosing education or work streams on where to work, think of something futuristic and work towards that, do research towards that, and pick up skills that help you towards that so that you're able to contribute increasingly towards your ecosystem and development of the world in the future. Uh, yeah, I still try to do that, and I hope everyone does.
Yes, thank you for that advice, Mr. Rishab. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Yes. In my early career, there was a book that was recommended by my manager because I was a bit rough around my edges, and this helped me look at work and life quite differently. And my relationship with a bunch of people changed drastically because of this. The book that was recommended to me was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. My manager recommended it to me because he saw me as a hardcore engineer, as he put it, and he needed me to develop some emotional intelligence and get to understand people a bit. And while I thought of myself as a good teammate, figure out what it really is to be a good teammate and work with groups of people uh, towards a common goal. This book kind of changed my trajectory quite a bit. From an engineer, I became a technical program manager, where more of my skills were relying on managing teams or groups of teams from the hardcore engineering that I used to be. And without this book, I can't imagine doing this job at all. I still, to some extent, practice and use the skills that are taught to me by this book because they are very powerful mental models or concepts for us to deploy in life.
Thank you for that recommended books, Mr. Rishab. And tell us what protect the stock market to digital infrastructure from attacks.
Can you repeat the question, Daniel?
What protects the stock market's digital infrastructure from attacks?
The stock market digital infrastructure. That's interesting. Generally, data centers themselves are pretty secure structures. But when we look at government cloud or stock market related data, those have a higher level of security. So we'll talk about data center security first, and then we'll talk a bit more about uh, the higher levels of security. Within a data center, there are multiple layers of encryption for us to understand what the data is itself. So when any data leaves in and out of the data center, It goes through 7 layers of networking protocols. At the end, there is a encryption device that encrypts it and sends the data. And for us to uh, read it, we need the right siphon or key for us to read it, which is existent in the crypto device in the next platform itself. So data transmission is pretty safe. The only way we can get access to it is by being physically present in a location where it is unencrypted within the data center. And to protect that, there are a lot of physical barriers that are put in these data centers to make sure that no bad actors get access to these areas. For example, in an AWS data center, you would have to badge in right at the gate, and you need to be approved to get into the campus, which is maybe 1,000 acres in the first place in some regions. Then into each of these buildings, you need specific access and you need to know a passcode associated with your access so that you can enter in. After that, whenever you go into more critical zones, what we call as yellow or red zones, there are again passcode oriented doors or biometric based doors which let you in, apart from people as well who are continuously scanning you or making sure you don't have malicious intent or devices like USB ports or even phones into these critical regions. So all of these make things quite intense from a security perspective, and data centers are one of the most secure places in the world. GovClouds and stock market, for example, go one step higher because it's that much more critical infrastructure for the world. What they do is they host data centers in regions that they control themselves. So unlike a cloud data center where AWS builds its own data center and hosts others' data, these guys either have their own data centers or enable others to build data centers while we provide them serious services related to these data centers. That way, they have control on location, they have control on the infrastructure in the location, and can maximize security related to it.
Mr. Shaw, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in first season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and mental health 101. Love letters in third season, in Movie 101 review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Rishab, what emerging technologies will revolutionize hidden infrastructure next?
What emerging technologies?
Yes, that revolutionize hidden infrastructure.
Yeah, the way AI is developing right now, we see more and more things being automated or self-sufficient. Uh, if you talk to people who are more far-sighted than me, they see a future where things are abundant, and so we don't really have constraints around money or time. But to enable all of that, we'll need a lot more hidden infrastructure, is how I think about it. We'll definitely need a lot more data centers, and they're already quite a bit in the rise. To power these data centers, we'll need water, electricity, and so there's already substantial investments going into nuclear and other alternate sources of energy. Uh, Having technologies developed from a cooling and electrical perspective that are environment friendly or carbon and water neutral, all of these investments will continue to happen. As we see AI workloads becoming more and more present in the edge because of Internet of Things, because of autonomous vehicles driving around, the hidden infrastructure will not just be huge data centers far out from us. We'll also see data centers of smaller scale closer to us that pop up so that they can have really low latency with all of the edge devices to continuously provide inferencing and uh, data services to all of the edge points. So yeah, I see 5 years to 10 years down the lane, a lot of edge presence for AI workloads. not just AI workloads, all kind of workloads. And a lot of the daily functions that we do today, we would again call them hidden infrastructure. And driving might, for example, no longer exist and be powered by cars which are run by bots, which are powered by data centers that are close by them.
Mr. Rishab Harikrishnan, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your LinkedIn profile, or anything you want to promote on Book 101 Review?
First off, thanks for having me in this. It was a pleasure being in this and talking to you, Daniel. Um Advocacy. I don't have anything to advocate for per se, but I'd say think about what you want to do in the future and how it contributes to the world in this realm of AI. Keep your attention span protected and focus on things that help improve you and the world around you. Uh, Hopefully, build tools to help others. Also, be present in the moment and get out of the social media trap or other traps that are created by these technological turnovers. Yeah, I'll stop there, Daniel.
Yes, and please, people, let's follow Mr. Rishab Hargisnan on LinkedIn. So, Mr. Rishab, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
Moticam people, see you soon.
Bye. Have a good one.